Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of the Perception Diet, and today we're going to cover part 2 in the Emotional Mastery series, and this is going to be all about left brain and right brain dominance and why it's so important to move yourself into right brain dominance. Alright, so in the last video, if you haven't watched that, please watch that one first. Essentially we talked about the programming, right, and how from the ages of 0 to 7, because of the state that your brain is in, you are being programmed, right? You're being programmed for your perceptions and your realities and how you're going to live your life, what your perceptions of yourself and reality are going to be. And for most of us, these are out of alignment with reality, okay? It's out of alignment with natural law, like how life actually works, and it's out of alignment with who you are as a unique individual, all right? So from that, you get emotional woundings, right? Because you, number one, stop trusting nature, you stop trusting reality, which creates a wound, and number two, you are essentially being forced to choose between being your authentic self and being rejected because of the programming of everyone around you, right? Or you are having to abandon yourself, right? Your actual, genuine, fundamental nature in order to live up to the programming, which causes an abandonment wound inside of you, okay? So all of these wounds that you have inside of you are rejection wounds where love went away in your perception, okay? And that's a very important key to understand, because as we move into emotional mastery, what you're going to realize it actually is, all emotional mastery is learning how to bring unconditionally loving presence to every moment, okay? This is what reintegrates all the abandoned parts of you, all the emotionally traumatized parts of you, brings all of the parts of your soul that are stuck in the traumatic past to your present, and then where you can live in the present moment without needing to be thinking about the future or thinking about the past to defend yourself from it, okay? So this is what emotional mastery is in a nutshell, is learning how to be in a state of complete loving awareness while you do everything that you're doing, okay? So you learned that you have programming, and that this programming is essentially running your life and running your choices, and you may feel like you're making choices, you may feel like you're doing different things, and you may feel like you have control over yourself and your emotions, and that you're not, being run by a program. But as you do this work, you're probably going to discover more and more and more and more and more that you have been running a program more than you would like to admit that you've been running programs, okay? That you have not actually been making choices and doing things in your life from an authentically loving place, that you've been doing it from your programming, okay? So the second thing that I want to talk about is the brain, okay? And so when we have these traumas, so these traumas where we have abandoned ourselves, right? And we have decided that I am not how I'm supposed to be, the world is not how it's supposed to be, things can go wrong and things can go bad and things can go sideways. This is essentially the fall, okay? This is the metaphor of the fall that each one of us eventually goes through in our life, and it divorces us, like I said, from nature, which is just reality. It divorces us out from reality, which is how it is, okay? It divorces us from understanding natural law and how the world actually works, and it moves us into a state of resistance of reality, okay? So we then move from a state of love where we can grow and create and observe and learn and expand and have all these wonderful experiences, into a state of fear and contraction. And in a state of fear and contraction, all that's available to us as a choice is to maintain the status quo. So this is why being in a state of fear and being in your programming is so harmful, and why it's so difficult to get out of. You see, because when you're operating from your programming, you're operating from a state of fear, from the assumption that life can go wrong and does go wrong all the time, that there's something wrong with you, that there's something wrong with the world, and that you need to be on lookout and aware of that all the time to protect yourself from pain, right? This pain that shouldn't be happening, this suffering that shouldn't be happening. And because of this, you are in a state of fear, which means you are only capable of running the program, because change from a state of fear is impossible. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a negative feedback loop. It feeds in and of itself. As you stay in this state of fear, you're going to essentially perceive all these fearful things in your reality based on your programming, all these reasons why. See, I need to be afraid. Look, people hurt me. Look, I don't have enough money. Look, I'm sick all the time. Da-da-da-da-da. This is your programming. You don't realize it's your programming. You think it's just reality because this is, right? Based on your programming, it determines the choices that you're going to make, and it determines your perspective, and it determines how you view the world, the lens that you view the world through, which means you're just going to make yourself right all the time. You're only going to take in the information that aligns with your programming and aligns with your perspective, and you're only going to make the choices that align with your programming and align with your perspective, which means you're going to continue to get the same results in your life over and over and over again and wonder why nothing can ever change. Well, again, because you're in a state of fear, you cannot change, you cannot learn, you cannot grow, you cannot expand. You just are going to do the same thing over and over and over again. Okay? Bruce Lipton talks about this in his work very, very much, that our brains work just like a cell works, right? And when a cell is in a state of fear, all reproduction shuts down, all healing shuts down, all growth, all expansion, all evolution shuts down. The cell just does what it knows to do. It just maintains the status quo, which is what you're doing when you're running a program. Okay? Now, at the same time, when we have learned to divorce ourselves from nature, we've learned that life can go wrong and now we need to defend ourselves from it, we automatically kick ourselves over into being left brain dominant. Okay? The left brain is the verbal, logical, linear brain. Okay? And basically the reason that we kick ourselves over into this brain is because we believe that we need to defend ourselves against reality. So we need to remember the past, right? We need to remember what happened to us because we feel like that's going to help protect us from future pain or present pain. If we keep remembering what happened and, doing all this pattern recognition that our brains are so good at, we're going to be able to predict what's coming and therefore defend ourselves from the stuff that shouldn't be happening, okay? And at the same time, we're going to worry about the future and plan the future and think about the future and da-da-da-da-da in order, again, to try and protect ourselves from pain or to create pleasure for ourselves, right? And in this left brain dominant place, in this verbal dominant place, we are essentially handicapped, okay? Because in this left dominant brain place, we have the capacity to process and filter and, understand about 40 bits of information per second, which sounds like a lot, okay? But here's the thing. The right side of the brain, which is non-verbal, non-linear, it's symbolic and it's feeling-based. So this is the feminine, intuitive part of the brain, can process and understand 11 million bits of information at a time. Okay, so here's the deal. When we are in our linear verbal brain, so we're thinking thoughts all day about the future and the past, we're not engaged in the present moment. We're caught up in our programming without even being aware that we're caught up in our programming. We're reacting to our situations the same way every time, like a program, right? Every time your son does this, you react like this. Every time your husband does something like this, you react like this. Every time this happens to you, you binge eat. Every time you feel this emotion, you go and binge on Netflix for 7 days. You see what I'm saying? You run your program, right? Because you're in your linear, logical, word-based brain. You're not aware of why you're doing what you're doing. You're completely detached from your emotion, and in fact, you're intentionally detaching yourself from your emotion, and you're running a program. And you're not able to see it because that part of the brain cannot perceive enough information at a time to actually even be able to pick up on the pattern that's happening and why it's happening. Okay? So this is the thing. When we're caught in our logical thinking brain, we cut ourselves off from a huge amount of information, right? We cut ourselves off from 10,900 and 10,990, wait, I can't do that math in my brain. I'll do it later. So 60 bits of information, essentially, right? Because 40 versus 11 million. And now here's the other kicker, okay? When you are capable of moving yourself into the right brain, into the visual, symbolic, emotional part of your brain, this is when you have shifted yourself into a state of love. Okay? Same thing. When you're in this part of your brain, you are capable of processing and actually integrating, or healing if you want to call it that, all of your emotional traumas, okay? Because in this feeling state, in the state where you are in this part of your brain, right? This right part of your brain that's symbolic and emotional. As you become emotionally masterful and you are able to get yourself into this state more and more often from the observer self, right? Where you can witness your negative emotions, you can witness your negative thoughts, you can witness your painful memories, and get to a place of loving presence within that witnessing. Yes, loving presence, as in I am no longer in resistance to what happened. I no longer am telling myself that should not have happened. I am no longer telling myself that the thing that didn't happen should have happened. I am in a place where I can be fully and completely lovingly present with myself and my emotions inside of this situation, right? All of a sudden you have access to all of this information about why it happened, how it happened, the purpose of it, and it will then become something that grows you and expands you versus something that gives you reason to stay in your programming, to stay in your negative program, to stay in your negative belief systems. Okay? So I'm going to repeat that again. When you become emotionally masterful, you are switching into the right side of your brain, which can process 11 million bits of information at a time. Okay? This is where super consciousness comes from. When people are intuitive, when people are psychic, when people can read each other, when people can communicate telepathically, when people can levitate, when people can heal their bodies, all of this is happening in the right side of the brain. Okay? Right side of the brain dominance is where all of this is happening because we have access to 11 million bits of information at a time. All right? In this place, combined with emotional mastery, where you can sit with the emotion, whatever you're feeling, okay? And you can get to be comfortable with that emotion. You sit with that emotion over and over and over again to the point that you stop resisting it, and that you can be, so you sit with your sadness, you sit with your anxiety, you sit with whatever is actually coming up for you, right? And you sit with it long enough, it's gonna, that part of the brain is gonna take you back to the initial trauma, okay? And as you bring that loving, aware presence that you are going to cultivate, so you're not trying to get away from the sadness, you're not trying to fix the sadness, you're not trying to fix yourself inside the sadness, you're not trying to resist what happened, you're not labeling anything as wrong and bad, you're not in that part of the brain, you're in this part of the brain that's symbolic and you can see it and you can watch all this stuff happen. You will have access to why it happened, how it happened, and you will have a completely different perspective on it to the point where it's no longer painful. This is the thing. You deactivate the pain by being presently aware with it. And from there, you are set free from the program. Okay? And this is the huge major key here. As you come into right brain dominance combined with emotional mastery, so you're not thinking about the past, thinking about the future, you're in the present moment because you trust the present moment, because you know that you can be with whatever comes up, right? And you have been lovingly, presently aware with all of your traumas to the point where you've healed them, because that's what heals trauma, is loving presence, accepting presence. It is what it is. Now why, what did I get out of it, da 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 da. You're going to have a complete new understanding of all of your traumas to the point where they no longer hurt you, right? And then you will be able to make actual creative choices based on the present moment, no longer living in what you have always done, because you are not traumatized and being pulled back by those negative emotions anymore. Okay? So this is why I'm saying this is critical that you understand this and that you learn this and that you become this. Otherwise, you are trapped in your programming. Okay? You're not even going to be aware of your programming, and you're just going to continue to run the same program over and over and over again, and your life isn't going to change, and you're going to have an experience here that is so much less expanded and creative and fun and living up to your potential than it could be. When you're just running your program because you're in a state of fear, you're maintaining the status quo. You're just basically going to have the same kind of life for the rest of your life. Same kind of experiences for the rest of your life. You're always going to want to heal. You're going to want to have a better relationship. You're going to want to have a better whatever. But you're never going to be able to do it because your programming is going to call you back, right? And so long as you're resisting your emotions, so long as you're trying to fix or get rid of or deny any of your emotions, you're going to have self-sabotaging behavior. You're not going to be learning, you're not going to be growing, you're not going to be able to get out of it. Okay, and again, just like with the cell, our consciousness is the same. So with these traumatized parts of yourself that are caught in the past, that are caught in wounding, that you are now rejecting, okay? So the parts of you that are stuck in the past are creating negative emotion, and then every single time you feel that negative emotion, you run from it, or you reject it, you don't want it, you try and get away from it, you try and heal it, you try and get rid of it, you judge it, you deny it, okay? This is you now abandoning yourself. You are now causing that abandonment wound to happen inside yourself over and over and over again, okay? So because that abandonment wound kicks you into a state of fear where growth is not possible, every single time you feel that negative emotion, which is trying to call you back to the place where you were traumatized so that you can be lovingly aware and present with it, so that you can process it, and remembering, processing in the right brain, 11 million bits of information at a time, processing in the right brain, 40 bits of information at a time, very slow, so that you can process it, come back into alignment with reality, which always uplifts you and makes you feel better, and then move on and be a creative being from there. Instead, you are stuck in the fear of the emotion, you resist the emotion, you reject yourself, you don't even know that you're doing it, but you reject yourself, which causes more pain, more trauma, over and over and over again. And then, just like the cell, when the cell is in a state of fear, and it's not growing, and it's not evolving, and it's not expanding, it has a program called autophagy, where it will literally self-destruct. Any cell that's not growing and evolving and changing, so therefore in a state of love, will eventually activate a self-destruct program to kill itself. And this is where all of your self-sabotaging behaviors come from. If there's any part of you that's not nourishing your body, any part of you that's not nourishing your mind, any part of you that's not nourishing who you are, any part of you that's doing anything that is contradictory to your vibrancy, you have a self-destruct cycle going on because you are rejecting yourself, right? You are rejecting yourself, therefore you are in a state of fear, therefore you are not capable of growing and learning and expanding, you're just running a program, and eventually that causes self-destruction. So again, this is why this process is so profound. You're never going to get out of your self-destructive behaviors until you understand the program that's running it. And until you move yourself from that program by emotionally showing up for yourself and healing that stuff and being in the right brain that is symbolic and capable of understanding everything, right? And living in alignment with reality. You're never going to heal from any of this stuff until you learn this emotional mastery. So I hope that all makes sense. Again, that was a lot of information. In the next video, I'm just going to kind of sum things up, and then I'm going to give you two processes. Like I say, one beginner process for emotional mastery, and then a secondary, more advanced process for emotional mastery, and you will practice them, and everything will be great, okay? So like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Find me on Instagram, ally_perception_trainers. Find me on Facebook, Perception Trainers. Come join Patreon. We talk about this stuff all the time. Reprogramming the subconscious mind is essentially like the thing that we're doing. Emotional mastery is the thing that we're doing. And yeah, if you have any video requests, anything like that, let me know. And until then, next video, I just send you everything that I have.